Shut your ringers off. Okay, we are live. Welcome to a Good Gut Live every Friday. My name is James Marin. I'm an integrative registered dietitian, environmental nutritionist, the co-founder of Married to Health, which is an integrative dietetics private practice in Southern California. And I'm excited to be here on a Good Gut Live. If you're listening to this later, you are on the Good Gut Live podcast, and we appreciate you listening. And you can catch the Good Gut Live podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm pretty chill today. I'm pretty laid back. This episode, what you're listening to, where if you are live and you're going to interact, it's all about my story today. We're going to be talking about my journey a bit. My journey includes trauma, obesity, joint pain, asthma, so much in this, and it's important. Yeah, allergies, which I still try to overcome, which is a form of leakiness in the gut, and I mean, you name it. I again, Dahlia, definitely. For those that know Dahlia and have been following us, Dahlia definitely has a more intricate and I would say even more serious health story than I do, but I feel it's important to tell my story a little bit, answer questions, get into the nitty gritty of it a bit, and just kind of discuss it because all of you relate, right? We're all humans. I'm now a father and a husband and a business owner, and just juggling it all, the stress, the emotions, the past that can still play into the present. So these are all implicated and part of your health journey. These are all, we all share in this journey together. And whatever your goal is, majority of those listening probably like have gut issues. And the secret is, and why we focus on the gut is really everything's related to the gut. I know if you've been following us, you've heard me say that before, whether you're having eczema and allergies, or whether your kids are picky, or whether you're trying to lose weight, or I mean, even your mental health. So whether you have depression, anxiety, or you feel like your relationships don't last, or you have troubled relationships, it does all intersect or directly connect to the gut and the gut microbiome. So it's very important. So a lot of our topics, of course, touch on the gut, but there's a reason for that. So I hope you know. For those watching live, make sure you go to The Real Truth About Health. We're also going to be on The Real Truth About Health today. So if you're not signed up and in their ecosystem, they're also really, really great. If you're watching this later, you can look up The Real Truth About Health and find us on all of their platforms. That's just a really cool, just meshing of experts, and you really get a lot when you sign up for their program and their webinar. And just we're going to be talking on the top questions when it comes to gut health, and also the myths and confusion with gut health. So quick plug there. But going back to me, this is where when I do a nice solo episode, it's fun, but this is truly my health story. If you didn't know, I grew up on a standard American diet. For those that know us right now, we do. I mean, I've been plant-based, and I can say I haven't eaten meat and chicken and, cow and pig and all these meat products that are normally eaten by my family and friends and people where we live. We live in Southern California in the United States. I haven't eaten that in like 14 years almost. I always get confused on time. Like time is so tricky to me. But it's been quite a while, and people are usually shocked. And even our daughter has never eaten those things. So kids at her school are like, "What are you like? This is a joke, right?" They think she's joking, and that came from a place of being so sick. Like I remember just feeling and being so sick that I really felt like there had to be another way. There has to be something out there. There's something I'm missing. There's something wrong with me, and just kind of in this search and that pursuit. So backing up a little bit, I grew up in I mean, at the time, I guess you could say lower middle class family. My dad grew up, or my dad, was a real estate agent and a grocery store manager, and was raising, three kids, two kids, and then my brother came late. My youngest brother came later on his own. My mom was a stay at home mom, and so um, great memories. I remember fond memories and fun memories, but there's definitely trauma there. There's definitely a soothing of sorts that came from food. So I quickly found myself using food to soothe sad times, happy times, anxious times, you name it. And so hot chocolate and ice cream, I'm the Nesquik kid. I had Nesquik every day of my life, literally growing up when I was a child. Um, and amongst other things, I feel like in the 90s when I grew up was in the 90s as a young kid, and there is when Gushers came out and Fruit Roll Up and Fruit by the Foot and like all these kind of candy like things that were pawned off as snacks, right? Like these were normal snacks in my lunchbox or things I would eat after school or home in front of the TV. And looking back, it was just candy, right? Like these things are candy. And so I think it maybe wasn't until recently where they're like made with real fruit. It's like, what was it before, right? So when you start seeing those signs like now made with real fruit, it's like, what? Okay. So it's always funny to me when I see that, or like kind of brands just kind of redoing their packaging. It's like, okay, great. And when you ask questions, you're like, what the heck? But all that to say, I was eating, I mean, a ridiculous amount of sugar, a ridiculous amount of ultra processed food, hyper refined food. And quickly, I remember this distinctly because in third grade we did a project where we had to weigh ourselves in the class, and I remember feeling this state of dread because I was visibly obese, if not morbidly obese. Always was aware of it, whether it was my older brother making fun of me or whatever the case was, just being very much aware of it. And this was the time, and at the time we had moved, so I was at a new school, so I really didn't have my same friends. I was kind of a newer kid, and then also, hey, now you're gonna tell everyone in the class your weight. And I remember just feeling this, oh man, it was just dread. And I did it. I mean, I didn't have a choice to be like, I thought about what can I do? Do I pull the fire alarm? Do I call out sick? Do I like run and just escape? But there was no escaping. So I remember hopping on the scale, and I weighed the most out of every kid in the class, right? In third grade. And so in third grade, from what I remember, I think it was like 110 or 115 pounds, which, I mean, if you don't have kids, like my daughter is gonna go next year after the summer into the fifth grade, and she weighs like 80. It's like she just got to 80 pounds. She's a very active and healthy child. Our daughter, we need to do a whole episode on her, but we got the compliment from like a 40-year long integrative pediatrician who's like, she's one of the healthiest kids I've ever seen in my career. Very healthy kid. So seeing my daughter, who's roughly at that age, she's in fourth grade, going on fifth grade, but even a year or two older than when I was in this memory, I'm like what, 20 to 30 pounds heavier than she was. And I was maybe even shorter than she was. I don't know, but she's very tall right now. She had a major growth spurt. And so looking back at that, that was a traumatic moment that I still remember, that I could still feel, that I could still go back and remember almost what I look like and the classroom and everything, because it's a vivid memory. And usually those happy times or traumatic times create that visual and that vivid memory in our head. And so from there, it was just like kind of a spiral in my life where it was, man, we moved, and I think my family wasn't doing well, which I can get into, but for the sake of time, maybe it just know my family wasn't doing well. There's lots of stress and trauma going on. And so what I found myself doing in kind of a new place that I moved was just eating and like watching TV and eating and watching TV. And every once in a while I go outside and ride my bike and do things, but majority of my time was just like, let's eat chips and drink soda and Pop Tarts and these candy like snacks and just watch TV. And I remember literally I'd come home from school for the most part and just watch TV up until the evening time. And looking back, I also go, where were my parents a bit? And I think because they were dealing with so much, it was easy for them to let me do that. And fast forward a little bit, you find yourself just gaining more and more weight. You find that I started getting hives. I remember towards the end of like elementary school, going into junior high, Probably a combination of stress, as well as I'm sure my gut was extremely permeable and leaky. My gut was not well, eating sugar and chocolate and ice cream every day. Um, just overall feeling sick, was always sick, always had an antibiotic, always was suffering from allergies, and like I said, hives, even some eczema. Then started getting joint pain, and there was a time where it would blur because I didn't want to go to school. I would fake being sick. I would fake, feeling horrible, which would then almost make me feel horrible or worse at some point. So it was just this really dark time, especially at a very young age, of just going like, I feel horrible. I miss my old friends. I'm just like eating my feelings and not eating out of hunger, not eating for health and wellness. It was just a really, really dark period in my life where um, you just find yourself in this cage, in this spiral, and you're like, how the heck do I get out of here? And it really wasn't until and I can't even tell you what, which was interesting as I think about this and as I talk about this topic, I can't even really tell you what. But maybe, my shirt might say it, but I can't even tell you what exactly. But there was something that clicked in junior high, or maybe like sixth, seventh grade, where I started just exercising. I started with this weights. Like, I got a weight set in my backyard and I just started lifting weights. And at the same time, I started growing and I started seeing like, oh, the more I move my body, the more I lift weights. And I think this was almost like God guided me. Something told me like, you have all this sadness and frustration and anger, or so much there, just lift weights, right? And so that's what I did. And as you do that, you're like, oh, I'm building muscle. And then muscle helps you metabolize. And then I'm also growing. So that combination helped me start to lose weight. And losing weight was great, but I still didn't feel great. Like my joints would still kind of hurt at a young age. Um, and what else? And then I would always get sick. Every flu season, that was me. Every allergy season, allergy sick. I was sick at least once a month. I remember that because I remember my friends commenting on that, like, you're sick all the time. And I'm like, yeah, at least once a month. And I thought that was normal. I'm like, doesn't everyone get sick once a month? And they're like, no. And so I had friends who like never got sick. And it was funny. I grew up in a mainly Hispanic area, and I would go to my friend's house and I didn't like their food because their mom was cooking like a bondegas, but it was like, so this is like a soup with like meat, but it had tons of vegetables and like homemade broth. And a lot of my friends' moms would like make homemade like foods, pupusas and tortilla, and like, so even though I'm not gonna say it was all wonderful, but like homemade fresh vegetables and fruits, and even, I mean, the breads like and the tortillas being homemade, it was way better than my like lunchable or my frozen meal, or my fruit by the foot. Not to say my mom didn't cook, she did, but it wasn't like some of my friends. And now looking back at this, it's like, oh yeah, I had a friend who like never got sick and his mom cooked from scratch all the time. So I'm sure back then it was a little bit easier to maybe find some more organic, and she was going to the stores that were probably importing from like Mexico and Peru. One of my best friends is Peruvian, and so like they did everything from scratch. So it's like, man, there's something there. There's magic in those herbs and spices and fresh ingredients. But me, I was at least sick once a month. So in seeing that, I came across a book, and I had to think about this as I was thinking about speaking on this. It was the natural cures they don't want you to know about. And this is not a shout out, um, because I haven't read this book in a while. I'm gonna actually make sure I got the title right. The natural cures they don't want you to know about. I think that's it, or something like it's like the 17 natural cure. It was very like, it's funny. This was before clickbait. It was like very clickbaity title, before clickbait was even invented. So Um, but it was, yeah, Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About by a guy named Kevin Trudeau. I don't know. I haven't looked into this guy. I don't condone this book at all. We're not endorsing this book. But I will say at the time for my brain, I think it was around 16 that I read this book, and I'll show you guys the book. I'll show it to you. But again, we don't endorse this book. I haven't read it in a very long time. But for whatever reason, I'm finding it on eBay. Like I can't even find it anywhere else. But this is it. This is the exact book that I found, which is wild. Yeah, there it is. So that's so funny. But that's it right there. And that's the exact cover. I remember that cover. And I was 16 and I got this book and I was like, whoa, it started blowing my mind because this was the first book I read that was going like, your food has toxins in it and your water has toxins in it. And it talked about fluoride and it got into all that, which now, I don't know if you guys follow the Fluoride Action Network. We're having a bunch of states repeal fluoride. The EPA's and CDC and so many other organizations are reviewing fluoride and its detrimental effects. And I mean, there's so much there. So this book started touching on all of that. And it was blowing my mind because it was kind of the missing piece where I was exercising more and feeling better from like a physical and anatomical point of view. But on the inside, like almost like my cells were still feeling sick, right? And I'm seeing some comments come in. My son, 16, won't eat my food. He said it's inedible. He eats ramen and frozen meals instead. There's hope. There's hope. That's so funny. But it's funny, but it's not. Look, I mean, well, I'm going to touch on that, but I want to say there's hope because when I was 16, I got this book for whatever reason. I did not grow up reading books per se. So I want to let you know a little bit of the home I grew up in. I didn't have a ton of books. I found myself, I've always just been curious. And I think that's why I am where I am today. I've always just been curious. I remember reading books about Louis Pasteur when I was like 7 because I wanted to be a scientist. I remember asking my parents for a microscope when I was around that age, like 5, 6, 7, because I would go in the backyard. This is kind of sad, but I would go in the backyard and get little insects and dissect them and look at them under my microscope. And I was just always curious. Like I just had this curiosity, and I thank God for that. Like I was just always curious. I wanted to know how about architecture and bugs and dirt and science and everything, right? And that's just me. And I almost had to kind of calm that. That's still me to this day. That's why I'm kind of in charge of our operations, where I do a little bit of everything, and that kind of helps satiate that appetite. But for a while, and Dahlia can attest to this, where I was getting involved in too many things. Like I think we all kind of go through that, but especially in my early college years, I was like so interested in so many things. And so it took a while. Like I had to switch my majors. I was interested in kinesiology at first and so much, but that was my original major for those that didn't know. And it was actually me just reading more on nutrition that made me switch my majors to human nutrition and food science. And that's where I got my undergrad. And so I have to credit this book, although I don't know. I should look into Kevin Trudeau in this book and see what they're up to now or what he's up to. But for whatever reason, this book really sparked my interest. And from there, it led me to read more and more and more, even so to go to college and continue to where now we run Marriott Health, an integrative, dietetic private practice where we incorporate this science, right? Going into human healing, into I would even say global healing when we talk about the microbiome. And I think that's why I love the microbiome so much because it's not just one thing. The microbiome is made up of parasites and viruses and bacteria and archaea and fungi and protozoa. And so there's all these things. It's not just one thing. It's like a beautiful melting pot of things. And it allows me to just go wow and never be bored by it or never be it's never not interesting, right? Where you're always finding something new and reading something new and connecting the dots. So anyway, before I get too off track a little bit, but so it was around that time where then I started, so about 16, 17, I started incorporating nutrition. And By the way, I was still eating tons of meat and cheese. And if anything, I went through a little bit of a worse period where I started to become this bodybuilder type person where, yes, I found myself eating more vegetables and taking supplements, but I was also eating pounds and pounds of protein. Like I was eating, and around the time Dahlia and I started dating, which is crazy to think from 16, 17, I met Dahlia at 21, which is wild. So it wasn't that long later where I met Dahlia and we were in college and we crossed paths and the rest is history, as they say. But I met Dahlia, but by the time when she met me, I had protein breath. I was like, I remember I could bench 315 was my max. Like I was just this dude and I was eating 250 grams of protein a day. I kind of went the gym bro route of understanding science and reading research. And I remember I worked at GNC, General Nutrition Center, selling supplements and thinking, all these supplements are great when only maybe about 25% of them are great. Like, don't get me wrong, supplements are great, but again, only about 25% are great. The rest you can kind of throw out because of just how crazy that whole industry is. But you know so I still was feeling better. Luckily I was also very young, but I was feeling better, but I still wasn't feeling great. So I'm going to tell you, really the tipping point to making me feel great came with Dahlia, and I think that's a sign, and that's why I married her, because it was the same time. No, I'm just kidding. That's not why I married her. That's just one of the divine coincidences or just divine appointments, I would say. Is just, me also connecting with Dahlia was when a lot of other light bulbs went off of going, finding deeper health into a deeper understanding of nutrition and really understanding that nutrition's where it's at, understanding, food is such a pivotal role, not just in our health, but in our society, in our economy, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And it was a little while later until we found the microbiome, but the microbiome helped us really glue it all together and understand it. I do want to comment on this question because I'm seeing your questions coming in. My son 16 won't eat my food. He said it's inedible. He eats ramen and frozen meals instead. If your son who's 16 is buying the ramen and frozen food or whatever he's doing, great. Mom, you in charge of the household, you buy the healthy food. If he's in the house, that's the option. Us as parents, our job is to provide the healthy food. Our job can even be to make the healthy food. But hopefully, if your kids are 16 or in their teens, they're helping you around the house and making the food. But if not, our job is just to make and provide the healthy food. It's up to them if they want to eat it. You're not going to control them, but what you can do is be an example. And number two, what you can do is educate them. And so you're just going to say, hey, son, if he's in a sport, it's even easier where it's like, you want to run faster or jump higher or build that muscle, bench 315, be healthier, you have to eat this and fill in the blank, right? It's better quality. If you're eating animals, better quality animals. If you're eating animals, adding more plants to that, right? Shooting for a more Mediterranean diet. It's those antioxidants, it's the polyphenols, it's the fiber that's going to really help you in the long term. I know it's hard for a 16-year-old to understand that, but they can understand this. It is important for them to understand this. And the more you talk about it, the more they're exposed and will understand. So, you know, and again, this could be also micro. If he likes ramen and frozen meals, well, what if he chops up a little bit of whatever vegetable you're making into the frozen meal? What if you add, cilantro? Or I know it seems odd for some, but in a lot of Asian dishes and some of the more plant-based Asian restaurants we frequent, they'll add chickpeas to some of their dishes and lentils and different legumes where you're not really noticing until you're going, oh, is that a lentil in here? Oh, pretty cool. And you're eating it. So even in that ramen, adding chickpeas and just whatever you can add to what he's already eating, that would be wonderful. But great comment and question. There's hope. Don't give up hope. There's always hope. Um, but on that, I remember being that. I remember being that 16-year-old and just I still was. I'm not going to say I was perfect as in this health journey, and I was learning about nutrition. But I'd go to In and Out and eat. My friends would dare me to eat a 4x4, or I remember one time my friend at In and Out got an 8x8. And for those that aren't in Southern California, In and Out, I literally grew up in the city with the first In and Out. So that's Baldwin Park, California. The first In and Out was there. In and Out was like the place to be, right? In and Out was the burger spot, food spot when you're junior high, high school, and even people till this day, right? So um, I remember my friend eating an 8x8, and so you can get the off menu items, and this is 8 patties and 8 slices of cheese. And he ate it. And we dare each other to see how many patties and cheese we could eat. And so it was no wonder why I still didn't feel great. And so going back to when I met Dahlia and really started digging deeper and kind of changing my lifestyle, you lose some friends, you gain some friends, and just kind of changing things because I wanted to feel better. I still was getting sick. I still would suffer from migraines, from allergies. It was almost like pressure headaches, itchy eye, runny nose, still like an itchiness. Luckily, the hives went away at this point, and overall, my health and energy was picking up to the point where I didn't use energy drinks anymore. Oh, by the way, I would do energy drinks and you know all of that. And there's a whole section here where also in high school I would succumb, and I was drinking alcohol in high school. Like I would drink a lot of alcohol in high school. Um, and yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole, but not healthy at all and making me not feel healthy really. Drinking a 40 ounce of beer in one night would not make you feel good, right? So um not good. And when I met Dahlia and really, really when I started cleaning it up, because by then I was like, all that partying and drinking was out of my system. I think I had given up like fast food at that point. And Dahlia and I were both on our health journey when we met, where she was also cleaning up her diet. And I'm sure if you go back and listen to other interviews we've done or podcasts, and I know we've done a whole episode. It's been a while. So I think Dahlia has to get on here next and just give an update on her entire journey, which would be cool. So let us know, comment or message us at marytalk.com if you want that, or on Instagram. But at the same time, we intersected and we were both on this health journey. So I think it made us become friends even quicker. It made us kind of go, oh, you're kind of aware of these things, and so am I. Like I've been through some things. Oh, I've been through some things too. And it made us connect even more. And by then I was reading, the China study. We were reading a lot of work by Michael Pollan. We were reading and just absorbing more so than our like curriculum, our undergrad curriculum. And even when we got into our department, we were technically in the Department of Agriculture, and so we were learning a lot in our college, but we would go beyond that. I remember us going to like conferences together. I remember going to talks together. I remember finding Dr. Michael Greger, who's very new at that time, going like, whoa, there's these doctors talking about this and other like dietitians and kind of this whole world. And then that's where the plant-based spark really lit. And it was looking at the data and going like, we are so fiber deficient in our nation. We are so kind of off the mark when it comes to those in the Mediterranean region, how they're eating. And it's when we then started experimenting with a plant-based diet. And it took me, and I'll try to focus on me, but Dahlia was with me throughout. But for the sake of time, I'll focus on just kind of what I was thinking, what I was doing. But um, in that time, it took me about 2 years to fully just experiment. And what I mean by that was I'd given up fast food. I think I'd given up pork because I was just like, pigs are just disgusting. And to me, it was just getting to me, like the thought of eating a pig was just disgusting. And then pretty soon thought of eating beef became disgusting, and then it was chicken, and then it was fish, and then it was, I'll tell you, the hardest thing to give up was cheese. I remember that being the last thing where I was like, "Oh, it's so good. I just love putting cheese on this," or when you're trying to be plant-based or you're vegetarian, right? And it's still easy to go out and eat dairy, and there's dairy in so many things. You're like, whatever, and you would just eat it. But I remember once I gave up dairy completely, because I gave up milk was easy. Ugh, I don't like to drink milk, and really it's just in cereal, but then most cereal isn't healthy. So I was like, milk, give up. And yogurt, kind of switching over to other yogurts. But at that time, though, you couldn't find a plant-based yogurt in a normal grocery store, right? So um really the last one was cheese. And I remember when I did, like within a week, I felt a noticeable difference. I felt like this weight had been lifted off my face. So when it came to like allergies and sinuses and like a lot of what I was experiencing still, and I was like, "Whoa." So it was a noticeable difference, and it was hard the first couple of weeks because, cheese can be addictive. You're addicted to fats and the casomorphins, and it's remembering what cheese originally is. It's coagulated fat from breast milk of a cow, right? So it's breast milk is made to be addictive. And because baby needs to drink the milk, baby should want to drink the milk. So there are chemicals and neurotransmitters. There's a lot of things in breast milk. And so when you're drinking breast milk from another species, you're still going to get those things. Some of those things are denatured in the process, but some of those things remain as well. So, not to get that's a whole episode in of itself, but yeah, I remember a noticeable difference. And let me know if any of you listening felt the same. I don't know. Again, we're not here to say give up all of these things. That's not our message. Our message is to add. But in this process, I was just understanding, what is everything I've learned? What is everything I'm eating? Um, and I have to also, to that fact, say I was adding, like, for everything I was removing, I would add 10 new things that I wouldn't eat normally. Like, I did start experimenting with edamame and tofu and tempeh. And not only that, but the amount of plants that I would eat. I even got a job with our agriculture department's farmers market. Yeah, we had something called the farm store at our college. And I was like, man, that's so interesting. And at the time, being a broke college kid, I just thought it was interesting. But one of the perks was you get a bunch of free stuff from what we're growing. So I remember bringing home like oro blancos and all this lettuce and broccoli and carrots, and we'd grow like romanesca, and we'd grow all these cool varieties of tomatoes and cucumbers and different types of squash and pump. So I was, for every one like chicken dish I'd take out, I would bring in like 10 more plants, right? And so at the time, I didn't realize I was building a diversity of what I was eating, but that's essentially what I was doing, because looking back, my diversity was so low. Like, I would, especially in my gym bro phase, I would eat brown rice and chicken and broccoli, right? And like protein shakes, and I would eat a lot of chicken, just a lot of chicken and brown rice, chicken and brown rice, chicken and brown rice, and eggs and eggs and eggs, and like, where is my diversity, right? And really, I remember the vegetables I would eat was like broccoli and carrots and like cauliflower maybe once in a while, and sometimes it was a frozen mix to easily make. And even though it's great, I was eating vegetables, but it just, where was the diversity? And so around this time in college, I really started just exploring that diversity, and from there it was all of these things combined where I just felt amazing. Like, I felt like, wow, like, and it wasn't so yeah, it was like this veil of inflammation like lifting out of my body, and you just felt it. And I didn't crave coffee or energy drinks. Um I just had this like energy that I still have to this day. Like, Dahlia and I don't drink caffeine. We love matcha and we love kombucha. Those have little amounts of caffeine, but other than that, it's like we don't need it. We're not like, oh, I need my matcha today. It's like, no, I enjoy matcha. I like the effects of like the L-theanine and like other great compounds in the matcha, but it's not like I need the caffeine. It's like it was just this feeling of like you have this life force, this energy coming through. And I want to say I did not do it exactly correct. Like, I probably should have been taking more supplements. I think got a little bit dissuaded from supplements because I was taking so many as like a gym bro type of guy, where I maybe got off of some of those a little too cold turkey as well. And but pretty soon down the road, and especially as learning and understanding dietetics and everything, I was like, oh, let me add some more supplements back in, like omega 3s and B12. A lot of us, whether you're plant based or not, should be supplements like B12 and just key nutritional components that we might be missing. So many of us are B vitamin deficient, vitamin D. Oh my gosh, I'm literally indoors now. You're probably indoors. You've been indoors. Like, we're just not getting enough healthy sunlight on our healthy skin in our healthy body. And so there's key nutrients that's like a no-brainer to supplement. So that is important. But in this journey, it was just feeling like, wow, I felt so much better. And not everyone will have this, right? Dahlia was a little bit different, where she had these gut issues. She had IBS. So for her, it was like, I'm adding more fiber and plants, but oh, I kind of don't feel better. And it took a lot more work for us to understand that. Hence why we do what we do, and why there's such a big focus on gut health, and specifically overgrowth, IBS, IBD, even, which is that inflammation in the gut. And we've spoken on that. Go back and watch so many great episodes on that. Um, and so, but with me, it was a little bit easier, I'll say, where I just went like, yeah, I'm gonna add plants and go plant based and eat all these plants, and it was great. Yeah, for the most part, that was my experience, where I felt great, and with key supplements and continuing to eat a diversity and variety, I realized like, yeah, I don't get allergies as often. I still get them, and especially with stress as well, I will get those things. And like, but what it is now is like, oh, I'll sneeze, blow my nose. I really don't get migraines. I do find I do get easily dehydrated, and that's just always been me for whatever reason. So I have to be on top of my hydration, especially in summer months. But really, I don't get migraines. I don't get the headaches. I'm not getting the joint pain, asthma. I love to run. And so it was this compound effect of everything that I was changing and doing, and just kind of looking back and going like, wow. And then early on, I did do some videos on my lab results, where I was showing like my testosterone remained high. There's always this thing of like, guys eating soy and not eating meat, they're going to have low testosterone. It's like, it was quite the opposite, right? So um very interesting stuff. I'm seeing some other comments. uh so they're saying, I would talk to him. Yeah, talk to your 16-year-old son, talk to all your kids. And again, we're not dogmatic of like everyone needs to go plant based, but what we're saying is everyone needs to eat more plants. I mean, that's easy. Most people in the US need to eat more plants. And so whatever that looks like, and whatever that looks like for your kids, um, I'm seeing. So I love this interact. I am Thai, and we don't use dairy in any dish. It was never our culture to use dairy products. Milky, creamy ingredients come from coconut milk. This is very interesting, and I'm totally going to divert, but I love this. But this is why, till this day, I couldn't fathom adding dairy back in. And it's interesting that was one of the last things for me to take out, like cheese, in that respect. To be a little more accurate, for me, it was cheese. But what's interesting is, yeah, Japan and those in Thailand, like, they didn't, for the most part in their culture, they didn't drink other animals' breast milk, right? It was literally just, yeah, coconut cream, right? It was other creamy variants. It was like cashew creams and coconut creams, and other sources, usually from plants, for that creaminess, texture, or mouthfeel. It wasn't like breast milk of other animals. And so throughout all these years of their culture, it wasn't until more of like the industrial revolution, fairly recent in human history, that dairy was introduced for them, right? So we kind of feel like, oh, dairy's always been there, um and so like dairy's always been there, and like we have to consume dairy. That is not true whatsoever. I'm seeing a from Kick. Is integrative health professional a qualification you have or a self-given title? So we're integrative registered dietitians. Registered dietitian is a title you work for. You go to school for that. Right now, the qualifications is an undergrad, a bachelor's degree, as well as a master's degree, and you do multiple hours. I want to say it was 600. Am I right? I don't know if that's the same. 900 clinical hours. So in and this is great. This is part of my health story as well, is doing this undergrad and doing the schooling and getting into an internship, which was the most intense interview because it's highly impacted. Like it's very hard to get these internships. And back then when I did it, I became a registered dietitian in 2013. So I've been a dietitian for, wow, that's insane, 12 years now. Um, so with that, you didn't have like distance internships like they do now. Now you can do like kind of a digital distance internship where then it was all in person. So I did mine with a Patton State Hospital. So it was a state hospital for the criminally insane. So I would do rotations in clinicals in a state hospital and other county hospitals. I'd go to schools. So we'd get a little taste of everything as a registered dietitian. As far as an integrative health professional, we've done more certificates and Dahlia and definitely a lot of our team. But for myself in particular, just going above and beyond the research to then be integrative, which integrative is essentially meaning root cause focus. So we've done whether that's a continuing education units and credits at different conferences or actual certificates, you can become then functional or integrative on top of that. So that's where you will also see a doctor, like an MD, a medical doctor, or DO or ND, who just go into other certificates and training and go above and beyond and then become integrative or functional, right? So that's just on top of the foundation of your education and schooling. And so us right now as registered dietitians and through our practice, that's why we can be contracted with insurance companies. Insurance companies cover seeing a registered dietitian. So I would say about 50% of our practice is insurance based, where you can go through Aetna, United, Blue Cross, Blue Shield of California, PPO plan and see a registered dietitian. So and then on top of that, I have to maintain that certificate as well. So every 5 years, I have to submit everything I'm learning and doing and be kept accountable that I am still able and competent and qualified to do what we're doing. So, yes, this isn't just like I've decided to be an integrative or was an integrative health professional. It's like, no, this was many years in the making. This is many, many hours, thousands of hours on top of thousands of hours of additional study. And this is what we eat, sleep, and breathe on a daily basis. So I'm not one of those people just like a talking head on here going like, I'm going to tell you what to do because I've decided to be this fill in the blank. No, this is like we were our own patients. We went through so much, but we wanted to dig deeper into this to help more people, right? And that's what our programs and protocols do. So, yeah, I don't know what 900 hours to figure out CICO. I don't know what CICO is, if you can elaborate on that. I'm seeing another. Do you have any recommendation for H. pylori? My son's pediatrician. What was that? Oh, calories in got it. So that's what someone's saying. CICO, the abbreviation calorie in, calories out. I'm so not aware of that because that is such an old concept. Like, yes, calories do matter, but it's not just calories in, calories out. Like the quality, and now we're getting into more of like a tailored and individualized metabolome, metabolic health, and metabolome meaning the metabolic kind of foundation and byproducts of your gut microbiome. Like it's not as easy to just say, hey, be in a caloric deficit and everything's going to be fine. You can say be in a caloric deficit and you're going to look good. You might see your abs like cool, but that doesn't mean you're cellularly healthy. That doesn't mean your microbiome's on point. That doesn't mean you cure bacterial overgrowth. That doesn't mean you don't have heart disease, or that doesn't mean you lower your risk of cancer. So this is where it goes much deeper than just calories in, calories out, right? So yeah, so that's a good question though. And so when it comes to H. pylori, and this is a great example, like calories in, calories out doesn't teach you about medical nutrition therapy for H. pylori, right? So my son's pediatrician prescribed antibiotics for my son, but I'm researching alternatives. So H. pylori is a commensal bacteria. Like H. pylori is going to be there. However, it can get out of control. And so you really want to understand, okay, what are the symptoms your son's having? What's going on? Is the H. pylori out of control? Did they properly test for H. pylori and show that on top of the symptoms, on top of the H. pylori being shown to be out of control and overgrowing, that this is needed, right? Have we tried lifestyle changes and other therapeutic and well-researched supplements to help with H. pylori? And then going, okay, yeah, we really need to tackle this H. pylori with antibiotics, which isn't the end of the world. Many people do that, but part of this journey is understanding why the H. pylori got out of control to begin with. Likely, if your son's experiencing constipation, or if this is the same son who's kind of eating frozen meals and ramen and just kind of eating the same old kind of fiber deficient food every single day, it can be constipation, motility, and kind of the stagnation in the gut that's then causing these microbes to get out of control. And so we have to understand, um it's an entire ecosystem we have living within us. It's a massive ecosystem, and it's great to look at the macro ecosystem as a guide for that. So in the same way, if I just left all my trash out in my backyard, I'm going to get more rats, I'm going to get more slugs, I'm going to maybe even get more bigger predators trying to eat the rats, and you just start to create this ecosystem where things are out of balance. If I have a healthy, beautiful permaculture garden where I don't have trash, I have compost, and I'm properly composting things and helping the garden flow, then I have a balance of, yeah, there might be some rodents, but there's also reptiles who eat the rodents, and healthy raptors and hawks, right, that eat the rodents, and everything's in more of a balance. We call that eubiosis in the gut. And so, yes, stool testing positive and bloated every day. So, yeah, we've done past episodes on this, but yes, there is hope with that. I would highly recommend you see a registered dietitian if you're not already working, because a gastro is great. A gastro is one aspect, but if you need and you will likely need this one-on-one with a registered dietitian to go in depth of going, what is your son eating, what has been going on, and here's a really concrete action plan. But yes, H. pylori can be rebalanced. H. pylori is one of those bacteria that we need in our gut, but it's one of those that are an opportunistic, it's an opportunistic species, right? It likes to eat, it likes to thrive, and it wants to do its thing. And so when we're not having the proper checks and balances, it can get out of balance fairly easily. It's very common. It's also, if you have a weakened gut microbiome, it can also be somewhat contagious of who you're around and what you're around in your environment. So there's some of those factors as well. So a lot there where I highly recommend working with an integrative care team. We can provide that for you. We see patients all over the world. So if you go to marytout.com, we're happy to explore that with you. Or if not, I mean, working with a knowledgeable dietitian in your area who specializes in the gut. Um, yes. Oh, I see. Thank you so much. She's saying, I see. Thank you so much. This is so common. It started from food poisoning. Yes. Post infectious gastroenteritis, also known as food poisoning, is such a common cause of lingering and lasting just negative effects in the gut, and pretty much one of the major causes of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, which is essentially just these lingering, lasting effects in the gut, and causing you just a lot of problems. Everything from even your mood, like I said, your mental health and wellness, to obviously your GI health and everything in between. So, yes, it's something you want to take very, very seriously, where you don't want that to linger. You don't want those effects to then further disrupt your health. In this case, when it's children, disrupting their growth and absorption. So, all throughout our GI tract from mouth to anus, they're different sections and they do different things. And so when there's a disruption, we are disrupting key sections of this conveyor belt, of this factory, of this beautiful system we want working optimally. So yes, and my our kind of mantra, or one of our statements we always make, is it's way better to take care of it sooner rather than later. It's for lack of a better word, or I mean, really, it's just so important to take care of it sooner, because it doesn't just go away. It's not something you just sweep under the rug and like it'll eventually go away. It's like you may think it will, but these microbes are very tricky, and it's so important to take care of it sooner versus later. But yeah, ooh, his stomach pain keeps him from going to school many days. So yeah, if it's disrupting now, likely his absorption of nutrients, which could affect his growth, which is now affecting his learning and school. And so, yes, that is something you definitely want to take care of. So, marriedhealth.com. And this is why we do what we do. We do see children. We've seen children with SIBO. We've seen children with an H. pylori overgrowth, and it can range in ages from, I mean, even one of the kids I worked with personally was 7, uh, but it can even age 4 to 17, right? So, um, with kids, because going back to even the original topic, I was one of those kids. I was one of those kids who I look back and go, I'm shocked I didn't have gut issues. For whatever reason, my genetics, this is where so many factors play in. I wasn't predisposed, or I didn't have as many light switches in my gut, but I had it in my immune system, so to speak, which is very close, but it's more in that like my histamine response and my histamine receptors were affected before my gut was affected fully, right? Whereas others, your maybe gut is affected fully, and then it's your immune system and histamine receptors, right? We're all unique in that sense. We're all a little bit different. Um, I saw another comment. Oh, I got an update. It's now 1,200 hours total for the dietetic internship. Wow, that's great. Okay, see, I'm out of the loop. I think we did 900. I have to double check, but now it's 1,200. I know they're up in the ante for dietitians, which is good in some ways. Um, oh, hi James. Could you please speak about which omega supplement you recommend? Yes. Right now, we do take Nordic Naturals algae omega, just because we've spoken to the company. I know there's some controversy here. We've had some comments. I'm going to be fully transparent. They recently, or I mean, I don't know what year it was, they did get bought out. But for us, it's difficult, guys. If you're in this space, you know companies get bought out all the time. And what was once like, we know companies that started in the farmers market, and we go, wow, like we have a friend who started a plant-based ice cream company in the farmers market, and we would buy her ice cream, and then she has a shop, and now she's getting into big stores. And like, I feel like pretty soon we're like, you got bought by Nestle or something, right? Like that happens all the time. For us, yes, we're always looking for a smaller, just high quality. But for us, the common denominator is high quality. If even a bigger brand that buys a smaller brand keeps the quality, keeps the therapeutic effect, we are going to use it, right? So until it changes, until we're seeing like, wait, you're sourcing from where? Wait, you changed the dosage where it's no longer therapeutic. But right now, Nordic Natural has one of the best algae omegas. It's still very high quality, very potent, has EPA, DHA from algae. I like that source. And I want to see more of that from whether it's larger companies or smaller companies. So, and we pick and choose and piece together from a variety of different supplement companies. So I don't want to say like that's the only one. We love Complement as well, as you guys know. I love Complement Protein. They also have an omega. They have some great supplements as well, and they're all like a plant-based company. Why I like sourcing from plants, especially with supplements and just in general, is one, you're not just scraping the ocean floor for krill, and you're not just, just decimating the ocean for, obviously seafood, but also supplements and just using the oils from krill and other fish and sea life. You're also not having to process and then keep fresh, right? And just preserve that fish the same way you have to do algae. Yes, there is some of it, but it's very different. This speaks to the plant microbiome is very different from an animal microbiome. And if you don't believe me, stay in a room with a rotting zucchini or a rotting animal carcass. You will smell the difference, right? So it's very different microbes that begin the degradation of plants versus the degradation of an animal cell. And we all learned this in school, right? We all took biology and we saw the plant cell versus the eukaryotic animal cell, and they're very different. And so they have a very different microbiome. And once you kill something, it is undergoing this metabolic microbiome microbial change and shift. And so that begins the moment that cell or that creature dies, and those cells start to shift and change. So again, it's just like put a rotting zucchini in a room, put a rotting rat carcass in the room. I guarantee you'd want to be there with the rotting zucchini. Not that that's going to smell great either. There's plant foods that smell gross as they rot, especially if it's anaerobically. Um, but overall, it's very, very different. So it takes it takes way more preservatives and way more measures to preserve something like a fish oil than an algae oil, and you're not getting a lot of those endotoxic effects with algae oil. Again, many companies with fish oil do their due diligence, they test, they filter, but again, they're having to process those things out and be aware of those things, whereas algae doesn't have as many of the impurities and the microbial detriments that, let's say, an animal-based an animal-based omega would have. But great question. um, I wanted to get your opinion on the supplement seed, probiotic, prebiotic pill. It's very expensive. So I wanted to see if it's because it's one of the best or because of the brand name. I do like seed. I mean, long story short, they are more so of a research based company from last I checked in. I've spoken to one of the co-founders of Seed. I think we did like a live with him a few years back, and we've had conversations. So please know, like, a lot of what I do, and even Dahlia, I mean, a lot of what we do as like the founders of this company is when we collaborate with a company, when we recommend something, we do a lot of research on that. We try to spend as much time as possible. And I can't tell you, one of the frustrating things is when we put on all this time into a company and then they do get bought out or something shifts, and it's like, "Ugh, we have to like figure this out again, or just stay up to date." It's very difficult for sure. Like ideally we would have Married to Health. I get why companies start making their own stuff as long as it's good. It's not just for the money. I mean, it can be for the money, but it's so you have control and you can control the quality of it. All that to say, seed, from what I know, is still a great quality symbiotic, they call it. So they call it a symbiotic, where it's not just a probiotic. So it's something we agree with. And that's why we kind of made this isn't like seed, but that's why we made gut nurture the way we did. Shameless plug, but you guys know. I mean, if you don't know, you know now. Dahlia formulated gut nurture with complement, so we're very transparent about that. But we didn't make this a probiotic. Like this, it's called gut nurture, but it's not a probiotic. And so seed was also that mindset. And really anybody reading the latest research or even conducting research, which shout out, we're in the works of doing as well with our patients. So that's very exciting. So if you're not already plugged into Married to Health, marriedtohealth.com, and get on our email list if you want to be involved, where we send you cool things and we do cool things with you, because we like to just be up to date on the research. And so, like I was saying, any company who's up to date is like, yeah, probiotics have a time and a place, and they're very targeted. But when it comes to just something, whether it's seed or gut nurture that you can take on a daily basis, um, it is more of a symbiotic. And what that means, it's usually a pre and a postbiotic blend. And that is essentially what seed is. And so it's the same idea. It's like seeding your gut. It is my analogy. They call it seed, but my analogy is really when the soil or compost is the prebiotic, the plant is the probiotic. So in this case, I mean, they call it seed, which you're planting the seed to grow the plant, which is the probiotic. The fruits that come from the plant are the postbiotics. And so everyone's garden is different. And so if you have a garden in Alaska and I have a garden in South America, and I say, here's some seeds from South America for you to plant in Alaska, it could go well, it might not go well. It's probably not going to go well, right? It's very different climate, temperature, soil. The seeds are not acclimated. So, what's beautiful with plants is every generation of the plant you're growing is different than the last. Plants are alive, the seeds are alive, the things we're eating are alive, and their DNA is changing. This gets into this is where we can go deep with nutrigenomics and proteomics. And this is where what you do in your life, what you eat in your life, affects your genetics. It's going to affect future generations of your kids and grandchildren. And that's where our tagline came from: heal with each meal. With each meal, you can shift and change your microbiome, which is going to shift and change your genetics, which is going to shift and change your children's children. The same is true with plants and seeds. So I think, like seed and like gut nurture, it's better to nurture the soil you have. It's better to make sure your soil, your unique soil, because everyone watching, everyone listening, you have a unique microbiome. It's unlike anyone else's microbiome. So it's better to nurture that. So that way, when any seeds naturally come, just like if I left a piece of land in Alaska open, or if I left a piece of land in South America open, it would start to grow things. It's going to start to grow native weeds. I hate the word weeds, but just so you know what I'm saying. But uh, it'll start to grow native plants. And pretty soon, that empty plot of land will be, I mean, filled with different plants. Some are growing flowers. Maybe some might have fruits. Maybe someone eating a fruit walked by and spit the seeds on the empty plot. And then a year later, it's growing that tree or that plant. So that's what will happen naturally to your gut as long as you're in a healthy environment, as long as you're taking care, even if it's an empty plot of soil, your gut will start to refill and reseed and reconvene its microbiome. That's kind of what your appendix does, and a lot of what these ancillary organs help you do. If you've been wiped out from antibiotics or a colonoscopy, your gut will start to reseed itself, and you can help it along with fermented foods and fiber and plants and going for a walk in the forest and seed and gut nurture and things like that. And again, this is a little more targeted for everyone, but also for those who also have IBS, SIBO, IMO, ISO, because this checks a lot of those boxes. But anyway, you can click down below to learn more about gut nurture. But they're all kind of different, but that's the idea. They have the same idea where it's going, let's work with what you have. You're unique, as opposed to a probiotic. If you're not careful, just taking any probiotic in any amount, it's like you're going, I'm going to spend all this money and time to transplant plants from South America to Alaska. They're all going to die. And or I have an overgrowth of too many plants already, and now I'm making it worse. And that can happen as well. So if you suspect you have an overgrowth, it's very important not to just be like, oh, I just need probiotics. Like, it's probably what you don't need, because that can also cause issues. Thank you, but I can't tolerate algae. Any other options? Ooh, interesting. Um, if you can't tolerate algae, are there? I'd have to double check what other options. But yeah, if you can't tolerate algae, it is kind of looking at some of the other plant. So it's interesting is like, why can't you tolerate algae, or like, what is that based on? Is that based on like a food sensitivity test? Is it just based on how you're feeling? If it's based on a food sensitivity test, it's likely to have leaky gut. This is not medical advice. This is just general advice. But why are you feeling that is a good question, and seeing what that is. Yeah, you can eat walnuts and chia and flax, or there's like flax oil, but then you're requiring and relying on your gut microbiome to convert to EPA. Um, DHA, because you are yeah, consuming the ALA and it needs to be converted, and that has a lot to do with your microbiome. So if you're having gut issues, if your microbiome isn't optimal, then you might not have optimal absorption, conversion. There's a lot going on in the gut. So I would recommend a supplement. It is finding out why. Then if algae is not right, looking into flax and other options, but you still need to get right and dig deeper and go, what's going on with my gut, if it is something with your gut. um Dairy allergies, I don't know what that comment, I just see dairy allergies question mark. Like, do I have dairy allergies? um I don't, not that I know of. I'm allergic to all breast milk that isn't my mother's. No, but, yeah, no, I don't think I've had dairy allergies. I know I was, like, lactose intolerant in general. Most of us are lactose intolerant. Yes, it's because we stop drinking milk and we lose that enzyme activity, but it begs the question, why? And so, typically, when you're consuming breast milk, you're not just getting protein. I mean, the talking points out there is you're consuming dairy milk to get calcium, vitamin D, and they'll even say protein. There's many other ways and better ways to get those things. You know, and if we're talking about young children, we need to move towards just more help, more information, more education on human breast milk. We 80, don't quote me on this. I think it's 85 to 83% of the human population stop consuming their mother's milk after the age of 6 months, and we start consuming cow's milk. That's just wrong. No matter what you think about dairy or allergies or whatever, it is something that we've propped up for many reasons, but it's a big reason why we're seeing so many gut problems. It's a big reason why we're seeing so many allergies in our children. It's a big reason why we're seeing also detrimental health to our mothers. It's a big reason why we're seeing women have more autoimmune disease and a lot of these GI issues. Women are more prone to these things. Breastfeeding your child doesn't just help the child; it also helps the mother as well. So much there. Um, Let's see. But that yeah, that's a whole episode in itself. My daughter just developed dairy allergies. Why would that be? Interesting. My daughter just started having issues towards dairy. Why would that be? Okay, she's 14 years old. She gets pain in her stomach and diarrhea. So that I wouldn't say that's an allergy, that's an intolerance. It's because again, just I don't know what dairy you're consuming or what she's consuming. I know there's a big raw milk craze and all this, but the average American is consuming um the average American is consuming pasteurized milk. And you have to understand, if you're consuming an animal product, the big questions you want to ask is, how is that animal living and what are they eating? And if you don't know, then I would say it is logical to assume it's not good. It is not good. It's not a way they're living and eating in a way you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. And so if you're then relying on that animal for nutrients, for wellness, which is what you're doing, especially with breast milk, which is dairy, right? That's what it is. It's cow breast milk. Breast milk is a medium to transfer nutrients, hormones, neurotransmitters, microbes. It's there to transfer. And if you don't trust the source of transfer, do not consume it. And so what we're seeing is, on top of just the sugar, it's endotoxins, it's estradiol. So if we're talking about hormones and foods, and people freak out about soy. Soy has estrogen. No, cow's breast milk has estrogen. It's estradiol. It's an active form of estrogen, right? It also has xenoestrogens, which are estrogen mimicking chemicals that come from the poor living conditions of the cow. So there's so many things in that milk that will make someone intolerant on top of the sugar that's in the milk. But it's these other things creating inflammation, creating this intolerance, because I would argue, I mean, you're way better off consuming a soy milk. You're way better off consuming a coconut milk, a cashew milk, if you enjoy that creamy liquid, right? Go for one of those options that aren't going to have those things in it, and get your probiotics from like a coconut kefir, a water kefir, a cashew yogurt with active cultures, right? This is where you can buy your own powdered active living probiotic and make and just add it to your creams and your yogurts and breads, and you can make it yourself, and it could be very simple. A lazy way to do it is just throw some of the powder in your yogurt when you eat it. If you want to really get into fermentation, you can get into the starters and the sourdough, and having your fridge look like a cloth and yogurt and cheese factory. And you can do that using plant fats and nut and seed milks, right? And still get wonderful benefits from it. So there's so many other ways to do it. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, it sounds like an intolerance. So very important, because you think like and I've seen influencers on social media who are like taking like a lactate, right? So they're taking the lactate and they're eating the dairy because they're like, oh, I'm gonna be wrecked and I can't do dairy, but I'm gonna take lactate and just deal with it. You're creating inflammation in your gut. You're destroying villi. You're creating a cascade effect in your microbiome. When you're 16, 23, even 30, okay, maybe you can handle it. When you get to like 35, 40, you're like, I can't handle this, right? This is disrupting my sleep now. I have sleep apnea. I have, pain, sciatica, and yes, it's connected in many ways, directly and indirectly. So you don't want to be doing that. You want to find out why, and you want to find other ways to do that. So, yeah, very cool though. I thank you all for sharing, because I know it can be frustrating, and sharing your family and just kind of how you're living and what you're doing. It's sour cream, dairy, cheese, ice cream. Yeah. So like even just the dairy alone is likely contaminated. It likely has a lot going on in it that you don't want. And for the most part, our gut can handle it. But when you start to throw in either higher amounts of fat, when you start to throw in sugar on top of that, so highly refined sugar, this goes back to that analogy of which ecosystem are you trying to feed, right? I like to feed a healthy, well balanced ecosystem. And that comes from eating a variety of fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, beans and legumes and all these things. That's imagine this beautiful ecosystem. If you're eating lots of dairy and sugar, and I mean there's sugar in dairy, and I'm not again, this is just an example. I don't know your family and your daughter and all the details. This is where working one-on-one with a dietitian comes in. I highly recommend that. But knowing, again, going back, what I was doing as a child, what I did for a lot of my life was eating copious amounts of dairy and eggs, and I mean just sick animals. I didn't know what I was doing. Lots of hyper processed food. I was creating an environment where it was easier for the rats to come in. It was easier for the not they are commensal but opportunists, right, to take advantage. This is where people get candida overgrowth. This is where people get H. pylori overgrowth. This is where campylobacter comes in. This is where you're opening yourself up to food poisoning. I haven't even got into the fact that animal agriculture takes in 80% of the antibiotics we manufacture in this country. This is where you open yourself up to superbugs and antibiotic resistant strains of these bacteria. These bacteria want to live and survive. The environment you provide for them, many of them, the opportunists will always find a way to survive. And that's why we're seeing these super bugs. We call them super bugs. That's the fun way to say it. But they're the antibiotic resistant strains who are going like, yeah, I've been exposed to all these antibiotics already in the dairy cow. Now, when I come to you, that penicillin you take, or that first round, second round of antibiotics you take, it's going to take much more than that. And that's where you find yourself as a patient. This is where we see patients come in going, I've been on like 6 rounds of antibiotics and I can't get rid of fill in the blank, right? I can't get rid of my SIBO or this overgrowth or the H. pylori or because you may have an antibiotic resistant strain, because we're consuming such a sick animal that constantly needs antibiotics, and we just keep giving the dairy cows, fill in the blank, dairy cows, chickens, pigs, roosters, fill in the blank, whatever, even our fish, right? And fish farms, we spray them with antibiotics, we put the antibiotics in their feed, and we're just pumping them full of antibiotics. So there's a lot of people working on this, health professionals to raise awareness, other organizations going like, enough is enough, this is not good. But us as consumers, this was a big move for us where we're going like, we're just not buying into this anymore, and putting ourselves at risk. And it's an experiment that has been working, and we see it in the research. And like, for example, our daughter in her life, was it Dahlia, 2 rounds maybe? So whereas me, I can't even count the number of rounds of antibiotics I've been on. Um, and so Layla, our daughter, is now 10, and she's only taken 2 rounds of antibiotics in her entire life. And one was because she broke her finger wide open. So, I mean, given that, like, they had to put topical and then, like, just as a precaution, because it was a horrible finger accident. Um, but it would have been one, right? Because she just got really sick one time, and who knows why. And we did everything we could, but it happens, right? Because we're also exposed to other people, other kids, these animals, and we're creating an environment to be more and more exposed to these risky and deleterious things. So, um, cool. But yeah, I mean, I would say, oh, and I see, thank you so much. I bought the gut nurture, and I think it's been helping. Thank you guys so much. Yeah. I mean, this what we create. We listen to our community. We listen to our patients. We have thousands and thousands of patients, and they're like, hey, we want this, or we're not finding this. And we're going like, oh, and gut nurture is one of the things where like, we didn't find it either, so we made it. We try to do that. It's a lot of work to do, but that's where we rely on other companies, like whether it's omega-3s or other. We can't make everything, so we try to find the very best and curate that for our patients. And if we really can't find something, we make it, right? And we try to keep it the very best in all areas, where like even gut nurture, the packaging is compostable, right? So we try to like not give you plastic packaging as well. So all that to say, yeah, that's one piece of the puzzle, but I would recommend working one-on-one with the dietitian as well, and just kind of diving deeper of like, where did this start? Why did this start? Okay, I'm seeing some more comments. Okay. I visited my new friend. That's funny. Okay. So flax. Yeah. So I'm just catching up on some of the other comments here. So yeah, flax, like, I also consume my omega-3 and so much more. So chia, flax, walnuts. So they have ALA, which in the human body will be converted to EPA and DHA, but it is relying on microbial action. It's relying on a healthy gut microbiome. So there's so much there on that topic, but I also still recommend supplementing, because you just want to make sure you have your omega-3. Omega-3 is I mean, when it first was, I feel like omega-3 is very popular. It goes through ebbs and flows, but it's always consistently popular because it's so important for us to eat and consume dark leafy greens. Like when you eat, I don't know if you guys have ever eaten a green. I'm trying to think of it, like even like a Mexican tree spinach, one of the more like varieties out there that aren't too common. The really medicinal greens can almost have like a fishy smell to them because they're high on omega-3s. You'll find even flax has that sometimes. Like if you leave it out, or you'll start to get some of these like fishy smells, and you're like, why? Even the algae omega will have, obviously because it's algae, a fishy smell. The fish have a fishy smell because they're eating the algae, they're eating the plankton that are high in the omega-3, which has that smell, right? Obviously, you don't want it to have a really disgusting fishy smell, but you find that like fishiness flavor in there, and that is the omega-3. So very, very cool and interesting. Okay. I totally got off, but I hope that helped you understand my health story a little bit. I love answering questions, and that's a cool thing about watching Good Gut Live. If you enjoy watching live, catch us every Friday live on YouTube. We're also on Kick and Instagram and all of our social platforms live. But if not, you're watching Good Gut Live podcast later on, and we appreciate you watching, subscribing, commenting, sharing this with a friend who's like, I'm having that 6-year-old kid or my husband or my sister, brother, whoever who's struggling. I struggled. I've been there. Dahlia's been there, but you can do amazing things. You can change so much. And it's not just going to help you, it's going to help future generations. It's going to help your gut as well as those who you love's guts as well. And that is why, our tagline, and that's why what we believe in is to help you heal with each meal. With each meal, you are making a difference. Okay, guys, I'm going to stop it there, but I appreciate all of the questions. I appreciate all of the just comments. And until next time, heal with each meal and feel with each meal. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.